Welcome everyone. Today we will be learning a very speedy build. Now looking behind me, this is the speed of the build in the Trials of Secum. Of course the speed is little boosted because of the trials, but if you have a look, this build can achieve a maximum of over 284% movement speed. And yes guys, this is in the trials. Outside of trials, it still have over 130% even higher movement speed. It is incredibly fast, and this is one of the best builds to be farming the trials because of this. And this is also a super budgety build. So the Chinese content creator we're learning over here has managed to achieve this build in about 1 divine, about 2 divine maximum. And here is some demonstrations of this build. Look how fast it is. It is an incredibly fast build with really high damage because of the latest combination that we learned from him of the triple toe. And that was the boss, by the way. So yes, he runs super fast through the trials, and then he can get to the end of the boss and do this. And that was the Time Lord. And over here, just small demonstrations of the building action in terms of damage against variety of pinnacle bosses. And you can say, one setup, you don't even need to blink, and that was the boss. Or this is the boss. Bing! It one-shots pretty much everything with the explosion of the combos. Now briefly having a look at this build in action in terms of the bridges, you can see that without blinking around, this build is actually a very speedy mobile build that uses the applications of Force Walls together with Bone Cage. Yes, you are manually casting those spells. And you might see the quality of the video isn't the best simply because the video we're learning from the Chinese content creator actually fast forward this one to 4 times speed, and after lowering the speed, the quality is a little strange. But you can see the build does not have any problems in terms of the normal mapping or in terms of the boss rounds, in terms of the bridges. Now just a small highlight, this build is not designed for tier 4 Simulacrum and also the super juiced up tier 18 maps. Simply because you can see the life, the energy shield and also mana is not going to be the highest. This is only a 2 divine budget build that can clear most of the content, but it is not here to clear 100% of all the content. But nevertheless, this is one of the best builds around the Chinese community to be clearing the Trial of Secum, or Secunum, and this is one of the fastest builds. You can see the speed of the build within the trials. It is incredibly fast, and it does tons of damage. This really allows players who likes to play the trials, who likes to be fast moving around, and who want to try a build without blinking around. This is a super speedy build. And we can see that the build in action in terms of a variety of bosses, it is extremely fast. And this really allows players to be running around and so clearing up pretty much 80 or 90% of the content with about 2 divine budget, which is really amazing to be looking into this speedy build. Now before we dive into the builder's guide, I'd like to say a big thank you and also shout out and also credits to the Chinese content creator Shi Yanran. If you guys remember from the previous videos, that is the content creator we learned the 3 item combo that one-shots pretty much everything in the game from. So to extend the current build, what he did was he made about 1 to 2 divine build with 280% movement speed that pretty much one-shot all the bosses with his latest setup. And here I have taken some time to translate the build, the setup, and everything related to the build. It is quite interesting, so let's have a look at the combos and also the mechanics for the build. But of course guys, should you be able to speak Chinese or if you want to support the Chinese content creators, I'll have the links available for you to have a look at his setup and also the creativity coming from this build. So coming over to the builder's guide, the first thing we can notice is we have the budget for the build. The build will use Queen of the Forest. This is one of the most expensive gear that is available for the build, and this is allowing us to be scaling with increased movement speed with evasion. We'll have over 60,000 evasion, and this really boosts our movement speed by a lot. And we can see the crucial pieces of those gears is around 200 Exalt, so you can see some price fixes, but the price really stables around 200 Exalt. So if we refresh again over here, you can see after the price fixing is 100, 150. If you're lucky, you can get the chest piece for 150 Exalt. And similarly, the usage of the Secret Flame Scepters is around 80, 90 Exalt. Sometimes you can pick up a little cheaper, but other times it's around 80 to 90 Exalt, sometimes 100 Exalt. and the rest of the juice is around 1 exalt or maybe 2-5 exalt. And you can see later in the videos we talk about the most important stats, evasion and also cooldown reduction for those juice. And those are not going to be the most expensive because they're not the biggest matter of the juice. Most people want more damage over here. And most of the items are quite cheap for this build. The Chinese content creator really targeted to make the build as budgety as possible, and you guys can adjust to your variant and also see how you want to play the build. But the essential gears will be of course coming from the previous combos we learned previously. So the damage combo is coming having a wand and also a scepter that has extra damage as fire, ice or additional extra damage. This is combined with Trample Toe, which again, this is the most powerful combo at the moment and the most budgeted combo to be overkilling your Force Walls. You will be having only 4 sockets of skills manually casting Force Walls and also Bone Cage. And because you're summoning a lot of Force Walls with Fortress and also with Spell Cascade, you can then destroy those Force Walls, overlapping tremendous millions and also hundreds of millions of damage using Bone Cage. And the build is so budgety, you're no longer blinking around. You're boosting your movement speed by stacking evasion. And just to show you guys one of the screenshots from the Chinese content creator, he was able to stack 95% evasion and also over 60,000 evasion rating using a 2 divine build. So this is actually pretty powerful, and this is how the build will gain so much more movement speed. There's also ways of using a second weapon swap with +7 to melee skills to gain even more evasion using Wind Dancer and then switching back with a small trick which I'll teach you guys, and then together with a lot of auras with Ghost Dance and also Green Fist for additional survivability. So yes, the build will have a lot of damage by manually casting the Force Walls and also Bone Cages. And the build will have tons of evasion stacked from the armor pieces and also the rest of the gears. And this allows you to build a quite budgeted build that is speedy, that is allowing you to clear a majority of the content for less than 2 divine. So now coming over to the skill links of the build. As you guys have noticed, the Chinese content creator has provided us with a 4 socket budget variant. I have also provided us with a 5 socket variant should you guys have enough currency to go for 5 sockets for those 2 main skills. But again, it is mentioned that you don't need 5 sockets. The build actually works wonderfully just with 4 sockets. So what you're seeing over here is we have Force Wall combined with Fortress, Spell Cascade, Icicle, and also Ingenuity for lower cooldowns of the Force Walls. The Chinese content creator had about 2.3 seconds for Force Walls, and every 2.3 seconds he can cast a bunch of Force Walls which gets spawned a lot because of Fortress and also Spell Cascade. You can then cast your Bone Cage onto those Force Walls to be one-shotting them. So right before the boss spawns, you can start summoning Force Walls, and you'll be summoning a lot with one casting. And similarly, just summoning Force Walls and casting your Bone Cage will allow you to pretty much one-shot the bosses. And you can do the same for mapping, of course. So you can see, one casting of Force Walls is a ton of those, and then you just one-shot everything in front of you. Now during this time, should you guys have enough budget to go with a 5 socket version, you can consider adding another spells like Spell Echo for additional Force Walls to be summoned, and also Magnum effect for even wider radius. And of course, if you have seen our previous video, what we want is, we want to keep Force Walls as low level as we can. Get your Force Walls to 20% quantity because of the cooldown reduction, and then get your Force Walls at level 9 and try to corrupt this one to level 7. Make sure you watch the previous video which we talk about this, because the lower the level the Force was, the more squishy the Force Wall will be, the less maximum life. This is why we reduce the maximum life of the Force Walls and then we try to overkill it. Now at the same time, you do want your Bone Cage to have as high level as you can, and this will help you to deal even higher damage. So as we briefly go through the rest of the skill links, we can see that we have Wind Dancers on the second weapon swap. Wind Dancer will have different stages, and this can allow us to have multiple stacks of increasing evasion. And as we stack more evasion with this combination, this will give us even higher movement speed coming from the Queen of the Forest. Now over here, there's a small little trick that we can learn by saving some spirit. So the Chinese content creator, as you can see in his demonstration video, you can see that he's not using the Wind Dance on the main weapons. He's using this one on the second weapon swap. And basically this is checked out that only the second weapon swap have this available. And also he got this one to level 21 because of the secondary weapon, which plus 7 to melee skills. So what happens is, once you tick only the secondary weapon swap, this one won't be taking your speed reservation. You first come over to the secondary weapon before you start your mapping or the fight. You start to get 4 stacks of Wind Dancer. Now you can see how fast it's moving, right? And then once you swap back to your main weapons, the Wind Dancer buffs will be persistent, and this will stay on your character, as you can see in the demonstration over here. So what that means is you can build up your 4 stacks and then swap back to your main weapon, and this will allow you to have the rest of the buffs and saving the speed reservation. Now, of course, the downside is if you do get hit, you will lose your stacks and you'll have to swap back to your secondary weapon and then swap back again because of this. But this really allows you to save a lot of spirits and also stacking tons of evasions for both defensiveness and also for tons of more mobility because of this nice little trick. So yes, just a small tip over here, you can see on the secondary weapon swap, this particular quarterstaff is focused on plus 7 ranks to all melee skills, and this will give you higher ranks to Wind Dancer, which is also a melee skill, and this will give you even higher evasion, and this is how the Chinese content creator was able to get over 62,000 evasion and also 95% evasion rate for bonus movement speed, of course. Now the rest of the skills are pretty straightforward. With additional spirits you have, you can activate Gold Stance, you can activate Green Fist, and even activating Actic Armor for even more survivability, and also Blink for utility. So yes, he even had some spare spirits for Blink just to travel across ledgers and also across maps, but you can see they're not really linked. So you can have any rank of those, but preferably if you do get them with higher quality, this will be better, of course, because with high quality, you'll have 4 stages of Wind Dance, and this will give you even better stats. Now coming over to the skill passives of this amazing Deadeye setup. So yes, as you guys have noticed, we are a Deadeye. So one of the reasons we become the Deadeye is that you can do this for other classes, but you won't be getting the Tailwind. So having the Tailwind would really give you tons of mobility. And you can see you have damage reduction as you have even better with Tailwind, with more movement speed and also more casting speed. Over here, the content creator decided to go with additional firing projectiles, but he mentioned this is not the biggest deal. Just having the Tailwind is enough. And you can consider having no accuracy penalties, but this is also not the biggest deal. So over here, this is all you wanted to get even better speed. And here is just a bonus coming from the Ascension. Now, as we move around in terms of the passives, you're going to see that there's nothing fancy. There's no unique juice. You're just here for some basic juice with cooldown reduction with high evasion ratings. That is it. And those juice can be very cheap. Again, I'll have the trade filters available for you guys to have a look at those juice, and there's tons of those to be shopping from, and you can even pick up some with better stats, of course. So, coming over to the passives, you can see that we'll keep getting as much evasion ratings and also energy shield as we can, together with ways of stacking even higher critical damage and also ways of stacking even higher evasion rating. Anything that can allow us to scale with evasion together with maximum energy shield is very welcome. So you can be trying to get higher energy shield or evasion on your helmet, as we're going to look into that. Now, some of the ways of getting high damage is by coming with Force Approach, and we did mention this in the previous video as well. So the golden combinations is coming with Force Approach, and then coming over here with Deadly Force with even higher critical chance. Now, this particular setup is not going to use Dynamism because we're not using trigger spells, so keep that in mind. You can see everywhere we go, we'll be getting more energy shield, more evasion, more recovery, and also even more energy shield with more evasion and also more scaling with even high movement speed. The build does allow us to go around to get even more evasion together with getting more socket of the juice. So you can see over here and also over here, there's a lot of little juice sockets that is available. There's nothing fancy about the build, and it is targeted to make the build as budgety and also speedy as possible. So in terms of the rare juice, what you're looking for is you're looking for those two main stats. You're looking for percentage increase evasion rating, and also you're looking for cooldown recovery rate. Ideally, you want to get percentage of evasion rating over 15% or even 20% if you can, but this can get a little expensive. At the same time, you want cooldown reduction rating. The minimum is 3%, the maximum is 5%. Again, 5% can be a little expensive. So what I recommend is make sure you use your budget and also try to pick up some cheap ones. So at the start with the filters, you can see most of them are selling for 1, 2, 3, 4 Exile, and this could be very cheap to just get things started. You might even get some benefit in stats, or you can be crafting the blue ones into a rare ones and then using exalted orbs onto those, which can be extremely cheap and also profitable. Now briefly coming over to the choices of the gears. As we mentioned earlier, this build is following from the previous setup, which is very cheap, so you don't have to min and max your gears too much, and it naturally stacks a lot of evasion. The combination of damage will be coming from this round with extra damage as fire, cold, and also lightning. Additional levels to all spells will help, but this is not a must-have, so this is a bonus. You just need extra damage as fire, cold, and lightning, and that is enough. Together with any of the Secret Flame Scepters and also any of the Trample Toe, any of the Queen of Force is okay, because those can be a little expensive. You'll be getting as much evasion and also energy shield as you can on the helmet, on the gloves, on the rings, and also on the amulet. Together with combinations of getting any maximum life, any resistance, any all stats can be helpful, because your gears and also your gems, especially the Wind Dancer, can require a lot of dexterity and also other stats. At the same time, you can be getting additional mana, life, any resistance is welcome. But naturally, the build itself should not require a very expensive budget. You don't have to min and max, you don't have to get the top tier of the stats, as long as you're getting the right evasion onto each of the gears, and that is enough. The build also have capabilities of anointing your amulet with Hunter's Talisman for more survivability. So here you can be having 2 talismans with Stone and also Thorn charms to become immune to Frozen and also immune to stuns with those charms and also recovery. Together with using basic potions, the build is pretty self-sufficient. Now, of course, the major stats we're looking for all of the gears will be combining those gears to get additional evasion, additional energy shield, and you can see this is the main theme with the rings. As for the rings, you're also getting additional evasion together with some bonus in casting speed that can also be great for the build to be casting faster and then one-shotting enemies. So briefly go through the skill rotations and the combination of the build. And of course, you guys might be wondering, how did the Chinese content creator get over 280% movement speed? And yes, this is in the trial. So within the trial, it is possible to get a number of blooms and also additional buffs that provide you with even higher movement speed. But if we have a look at the screenshot of the build outside of the trials and also in normal mapping, he still have over 129% movement speed, and this is within the 2 divine budget. He can push for higher evasion as well to get even higher movement speed, of course. But we can see in the trials, it is extremely fast, over 284% movement speed. And this is why they say this is one of the best builds to be speed farming and also speed running those trials to get tons of loots like we can see over here. So in terms of the build rotations and also skills, you can see there isn't that many skills. So if I move my head around over here, you can see he's pretty much using 2 skills. One skill is to allow him to cast the Force Walls before the boss or in front of the enemies. The second skill is to explode them. So over here, I do want to mention the ability of using Astral Projection allows you to be target casting your Bone Cage. So the Bone Cage is no longer surrounding your character, but rather this can be target casted where you summon the Force Walls. So this is one of the reasons he can then target casting those spells. And you can see right before the boss, you just cast your Force Wall and then you cast your Bone Cage and the boss is one-shotted. It is pretty trivial and it is pretty broken using this combo. So make sure you guys enjoy this one while this one lasts. Now in terms of mapping and also clearing out normal monsters, you can see the combination is pretty straightforward. You are running pretty fast and you are casting your Force Walls together with Bone Cage every 2.3 seconds. And this is pretty much it. And because the build is not designed to be auto-blinking, you don't have to be blinking too much, but you have the ability to blink around. You do want to avoid getting hit, but your skills, or cooldowns, and also abilities do enough damage, enough for this build to be extremely mobile while casting your Force Walls and also Bone Cage in front of you. And that is the entire combination. Should you find yourself a little low on mana, you can be popping your mana potions and then repeat the process. Because you're extremely mobile, you can then dodge away from enemies, to kite them a little bit and then to summon additional Force Walls and exploding them and also destroy everything within half of the radius of the map. So the quality of the replay is not the best Because if you look at the replays coming from the content creator, he actually had this one on 4 times speed just for a shorter replay. But you can see the build is extremely fast. And one of the highlights I do want to mention at the final part is how fast this one can clear the trials. So you can see the content creator is demonstrating the combinations and also what are the combination of the relics and also buffs you want to be clearing the trial really fast. And this is insanely fast because of the movement speed and also the buffs you can gain from the trials. And because it's had this one on 4 times movement speed, it is a little too speedy for me. But should you want to check this out of how he cleared the trials, you can try to slow down the gameplay and have a look. So one of the ways to slow down over here is to go to 0.5 times, but that is still too fast. I think he had it on this one on 4 times speed, but you can see it is amazingly fast to be clearing out the trials. And they are calling this one the king of the toilet because they look at the trials, it looks like a dungeon for toilet, and the Chinese players are calling this one the king of the toilet speed farming build with a budget setup. So what I do now is I'll provide you guys with the links to the 4 socket and also the 5 socket version, and also the major most important gears with the budget setup, and together with the links of searching for those crucial items for this particular build. Now, similar to this one, in the future, we're also looking to build that uses the same combination of the trample toe that deals tons of damage, but lowering the budget of the build. And this should allow us to have more accessibilities of having a build around 2 or maybe 5 divines to have the best damage and also to clear all the contents in the game. So stay tuned for new builds that can use the latest combination from the previous guide, and then we'll be looking into more builds. At the same time, I'll also look into additional build that doesn't involve trample toe, that uses the traditional method and also different setups. So we'll be covering more builds for Path of Exile 2 to come. Now, hopefully you guys found today's video helpful. Again, a big thank you to everyone on YouTube, especially our supporters and also those of you guys who's been supporting me on Patreon as well. And we do have a new feature on the Mattjestic YouTube channel. If you click onto this, you can become a member. Yes, I've added this just recently, and this will allow you to have early access to videos that is posted a few hours or even half a day earlier if you want to watch those videos a little early. But yes, this will cost money. So please be aware the membership will cost money. And if you do want to watch videos normally, those videos will still be available after 6 to 12 hours, normally on the time we post those videos. And I'll be aiming to post at least 1 Path of Exile video a day. And this will be including guides, tips, news update, and also the latest tricks that is discovered on both the English and also Chinese community to keep you guys updated. And if you like those videos, make sure you leave a nice comment and also leave a like for those videos. Now, before we finish, if you guys haven't subscribed, this is a really good time to do so because I'll be looking into the latest Path of Exile 2 news on different communities and also on our official forum, official webpage. I'll also be looking into the best build for each of the class as the meta develops with the Chinese and also the English community. So stay tuned for the latest update and also guides for Path of Exile 2. And of course, this is going to be a big month for us. And I'll try to bring you guys all of the latest content and also guides for Path of Exile 2 to come.